no. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how Coraline's mom is public enemy number one, and why this bitch is the problem. Okay, she becomes better in the end, but we're gonna talk about how Coraline's mom is the main reason Coraline almost lost. And a lot of it could have been prevented had her mom was listening to the shit that she was just like, hey, like, what do you think is it? Like, Coraline kept putting out hints. I'm disappearing for a couple of hours of the day, and because you're too busy doing your own shit, you don't even notice that I'm disappearing for a couple of hours of the day. That's another red flag to me. Like, she's going to this other dimension, and she's there long enough to see shows performed, long enough to have deep conversations with people. Like, this bitch, like, in the garden hanging out, she's there long enough to have meals and stuff. Like, you have not seen your child for an hour and something. You don't hear nothing from your child, and it doesn't occur to you to go check the house. She's not in school. She doesn't have friends like that. She's not outside. You don't even know she's outside. You don't go check your kid. You haven't seen her for hours, and y'all just like, oh, that's fine because you're working on. No one thought to check for Coraline. No one. And that's why she almost, and the only reason Coraline didn't go and get her eyes fucking shut is because she was like, that shit looked painful. If someone were to tell you, hey, yo, I want to take away your sight so you could stay here, how the fuck did you get, do you know how bad your situation had to be for you to be like, yes, I agree for you to take away my ability to see? So imagine how fucked up your life had to be that you were willing to consent to having buttons like replace your eyes. Like, your life is so fucking terrible that you're like, anything is better than this. Me having button eyes is so much better than the life I'm living at home. And if you look back at like the ghost, so here we have the ghost children, which is absolutely terrifying of a picture. Great job to this person who made it. So from my understanding, it went with the girl's the first one. The girl with the hat is the first one. And she's from like the pioneer times and whatnot. And honestly, I can understand why she would probably want to leave, because like, let's think about it, right? She likely, like, the greatest thing that she could probably accomplish during her time period is be a mom, and that's like the limit of what her life would be. It's just she would have to be a mom at such an early age, and the pressures of being a woman and having to deal with like womanhood and whatnot. Again, she probably wasn't able to have a childhood. So she was like, hey, I'm actually able to like play and like not think about the responsibilities of like life so early on and whatnot. And the Beldan was just like, hey, if you let me sew buttons to your eyes, whatever, you know, we'll be able to chill out and have fun. And I'm not saying that that's not like a justifiable reason to have it done, but given the circumstances of what that life was probably like, she probably agreed, like, yeah, you know, this seems better for me. And then we'll move on to this boy, right? Huck Finn Jr. Based on the pictures around the house and like how he like looks and whatever, you could tell he was probably like really small, probably a runt of a boy. And there's probably a good chance that he wasn't seen as like extremely masculine. So like I guess he could be suffering from the fact of like the pressures of society and pushing him as a young boy. He probably was like, this is probably worth it. Like me being in this area, like I can finally be myself and not have to worry about being a man at such an early age. Cool. I agree to go and take this. Like I agree to have you take my life, right? Cool. Then you have the little sweet ghost girl with braids, who is the black girl. I don't even gotta tell you why she probably agreed to that, because she grew up probably in like the Jim Crow era, or even worse, with like racism at the ultimate high. I can guarantee you, if someone tells you this is probably the best life you can have, where that's not gonna be a problem for you anymore, she probably like agreed in like the drop of a hat, because it's like she was not only a twin, so she's dealing with the pressures of like having competition with your siblings, but also the fact that she's a little black girl during that time period versus like this person who's probably going to give you a life where none of that matters, and she probably wasn't dealing with like poverty and having to deal with like, you know, being discriminated against in this wonderful world. Like I can understand why each one of them may have agreed to have their lives taken away. I can understand why their circumstances might have been so absolutely terrible that they were like, yeah, I would agree to this being my life. However, Coraline, despite her parents being neglectful, she didn't really suffer like that. Like she just had parents who just like didn't want to watch her for a few days. That was like, all right, whatever. But she still understood the concept of like, life isn't that bad for me. So she didn't want to go with it. It like made total sense to me why she was just like, hey, yo, nah. Like my life really isn't that terrible for this to be happening. Sure, I probably will go through a rebellious stage and my parents will not ignore me, and then that's when they'll pay attention to me. But it wasn't like her parents were abusing her. Like they wasn't like hitting her upside the head. It wasn't like she wasn't going through like SA. She wasn't like dealing with bullies yet. Like she was just dealing with parents who just like decided to choose work over her. But she knew that they deep down did care about her. She knew her parents loved her. Like despite her mom being whatever, she knew her mom did care about her. Like there was a small snippet moment in which her mother was like, I'll try to do better. Like she didn't have that much of a shitty life compared to these 3 children. So when presented with that opportunity to like lose your eyesight to have like, you know, like I guess a greedy life or whatever, of course Coraline was gonna be like, hey yo, wait, I'm not suffering that bad that I need this to happen.